There was a time when Panera Bread felt like a waiting room for the middle class. Warm space, you could sit for a long time without being rushed, free Wi-Fi like a privilege back when it was still rare, and their classic dish, the one people remember by feeling, not just taste. Hot, creamy mac and cheese in a bowl made of bread, heavy in your hands, and when you tear it open you hear the crust crackle like a promise. And now, you walk in and can clearly hear the echo of your own footsteps. Not because the place is peaceful, but because it's empty. Some locations have closed, some have quietly scaled back operations, some have posted notices changing the menu, changing hours as if shrinking in on themselves just to hang on. A brand that once lived on the feeling of being taken care of now looks like a storefront waiting to be handed over. These snippets aren't sidewalk rumors. They're the fingerprints of a case. Store closures, limited menus, quiet handoffs, and the legal troubles that follow from the franchise side. Today, we're not just going to review the food. We're going to dissect the medical chart of a dying empire. The story didn't begin with dreams of domination, but with a local bakery with a simple name, St. Louis Bread Company. A model that sounded very everyday, baking bread, selling soup, serving the neighborhood with a smell that made people slow down. Then it was acquired by another chain, renamed, given a new outfit, and from there the name Panera Bread appeared. Panera's genius was that it stood squarely between two extremes. Not fast food you eat just to be done, and not a sit-down restaurant where you wait on a server. It sold the feeling that you're choosing better. Fresh bread, hot soup, salad. Things that look lighter, cleaner, as if you just made a responsible decision for yourself. Then they made a move that a lot of places at the time didn't dare to make, offering free Wi-Fi and turning the place into a hangout. You didn't come just to eat, you came to stay, to study, to work, to meet up, to escape a cramped office, or simply to buy lunch and trade it for a few hours of peace. At its peak, they expanded to thousands of locations, becoming a habit for office workers, students, and freelancers. Panera became a benchmark for what people called fast food that feels healthy, a bridge between conscience and convenience. And they had icons strong enough to turn strangers into regulars. Bread bowls filled with soup or mac and cheese, and the pick-two combo that made people feel like they were designing their own lunch instead of being shoved into a default set. Those small details created the illusion of choice, of personality, of a brand that knew how to cater to the eater. The problem didn't explode overnight. It cracked slowly, the way a body grows too fast while the skeleton can't keep up with the weight. When a chain expands to the point that it's everywhere you look, what gets stretched isn't just supply or staff training, but the original promise itself. You can open more stores, but you can't replicate that feeling of decency infinitely without paying a price. And then the decisive event happened in 2017. Panera Bread was acquired by JAB Holding Company for $7.5 billion. That number sounds like a lavish wedding, but in business, it often looks more like a mortgage contract. When a private equity group walks in, the first question is rarely, how do we make customers happier? But, how do we make each store generate more money, faster, more consistently? From here, the operating logic changed direction. The focus shifted to maximizing profit and cutting costs, through things that are hard to see if you're only standing at the ordering counter. Recipes were simplified to reduce variables, reduce mistakes, reduce prep time. The baking process was narrowed down. Fewer steps, less skill required. When you shorten the parts that take effort, you also shorten the soul of a bakery. More importantly, Panera started moving away from the image of a bakery cafe as a place of refuge, and toward becoming a machine optimized for revenue per store. The experience of lingering, that unhurried feeling, gradually gave way to assembly line thinking. how to keep cash flow steady, how to bring customers back often not because they love it, but because they've been locked into a habit. And this is when the legal tricks started doing their job. The coffee subscription model. A monthly sign-up sounds like a deal, like a perk for regular drinkers. But look closer, and it's a behavior lock. You've already paid, so you're inclined to come back to get your money's worth, and every time you come back, you're more likely to buy food, too. Revenue no longer depends entirely on whether the meal is worth it, but on whether the system can keep you in the loop. Panera's decline didn't come as a neck-snapping fall. It came through small experiences repeated over and over. The first problem is the equation of price versus value. Prices crept up year after year, but portions shrank in a way that made you feel disrespected. Same tray, same paper bag, but the feeling of full and worth it got shaved down. People aren't just annoyed that it's expensive. They're annoyed that it's expensive and still feels like not enough. This is the signature frustration of an inflation era. You look at the receipt and it feels like you just got legally pickpocketed. The second problem is the quiet menu changes. Not the kind announced clearly, but the kind where one day you walk in and the thing you used to order is gone as if it never existed. Like the chicken teriyaki bowl, one of the items with a loyal following, erased from the options. When a chain does that over and over, it sends a very cold signal. Customer preference matters less than operational convenience. The third problem is that competition in the healthy lunch space got brutal. Panera once sat in an almost untouchable spot, fast, clean, and with room to sit. But then rivals matched every one of those advantages more aggressively. Chipotle became the pick for people who want something fast that still actually fills you up. Sweetgreen pulled in the crowd that wants real salad. True, build your own, with a modern feel. Chick-fil-A drew customers with speed and service consistency. Starbucks kept owning the sit-and-work role Panera had helped pioneer. As choices multiplied, Panera stopped getting forgiven for mediocrity. The fourth problem, and the one that kills trust the fastest, is food quality. It isn't always bad, but inconsistency is what's truly frightening. Sandwiches show up wet, soggy, like the bread surrendered before it even reached your hands. A lot of items get called bland. You finish and nothing sticks with you except the feeling that you wasted money. And when orders shifted to delivery or online pickup, the failures got louder. Food arrives cold, items are missing, or basic components are gone. The example that makes people furious sounds tiny, but that's exactly why it's so hard to accept. A tuna sandwich missing tomatoes. You order lunch to save time, and you end up losing time because you're forced to accept something close enough like that. And if you have to spend $15 to $20 for a skimpy lunch that's mostly just greens, would you keep eating there for the brand, or would you immediately bail and go somewhere else? Leave a comment. At this point, the attempts to salvage things started showing up in scattered bursts, like strips of tape slapped onto a leaking pipe, testing thin crust pizza, then rolling out more subscription bundles in hopes of turning a habit into a chain. It all carried the same scent, not do better, but how do we collect money more steadily? But the real sign of the apocalypse wasn't the new items. It was where Panera sold its soul for cheap, putting mac and cheese in grocery stores. On paper, it's expanding distribution, bringing the product closer to consumers. But in brand terms, it's a self-demotion, something that used to be an in-store experience, tied to heat, to bread, to the feeling that you were being served, now sits on a shelf like any other industrial food box. And that's the moment a lot of people realized the transformation was complete. Panera was no longer simple, fresh, in the sense of a bakery cafe with an identity. It became complicated, packed with patchwork ideas, prices climbing higher, while the impression it left grew thinner and thinner. You look at the menu and see more choices, but after you eat, you feel like you have fewer reasons to come back. On top of that, scandals started exploding like forensic reports from the scene. It was no longer about expensive or cheap. This was about trust being hollowed out. The first scandal was the charged lemonade. It was placed in the context of a lunch spot, where customers could see a drink as a harmless add-on. But what Panera sold here was accused of being a switch in perception, marketed like a substitute beverage, while the stimulant content was said to be so high it far exceeded what many consumers expected. Some even compared it to being higher than a few popular energy drinks combined.
Someone like their daughter who just needed to know these things in bigger words, bigger warnings.
The result was a wave of controversy and lawsuits tied to cardiovascular health concerns, with serious incidents mentioned in the legal filings. In the end, Panera had to post clearer warnings and moved to remove the product from the menu. A slip not just in product, but in responsibility. The second scandal was more symbolic because it struck straight at the fresh image. Dirty mac and cheese went viral on social media not because the food tasted bad, but because it was the moment the mask slipped. The video showed an employee dunking a frozen bag of mac and cheese into boiling water to heat it up. That scene made a lot of people realize the truth they'd been trying to avoid. The food they were paying for wasn't cooked fresh on site in the way they'd assumed. A chain running on pre-made product is normal in the industry. But for Panera, once built on the feel of an artisan bakery, that moment felt like getting caught lying about what it really was. The third scandal was the biggest betrayal, because it wasn't about a specific product. It was about the entire fresh system being hollowed out. Soup was pre-cooked and hidden in bags, reheated like industrial food. Bread, the thing considered the soul of the place, was rushed to meet targets. The dough wasn't given enough time to proof. The process was forced faster than quality could withstand. And when staffing got cut, the overnight bakers, the people who created the identity of a bakery cafe, were erased from the picture as if they were nothing but excess cost. The result was a mass-produced feeling settling over everything. Not the kind of modern mass production you can trust, but mass production with no soul. The right process, the right timing, the right temperature, but missing the thing that once made Panera different. And once customers have seen the machine behind the sign, they can't go back to that original innocence. After all the patch jobs and the scandals that ripped off the mask, what remained wasn't a product problem. It was an identity crisis. Panera tried to be everything at once. Healthy, a little upscale, fast, and cafe-like. But the more roles it tried to hold, the more it lost its center. And the ending for brands like that is usually the same. In customers' eyes, they stop being the default choice for any need. At this point, the fingerprints of private equity show more clearly than any billboard ever could. When the goal gets pulled toward short-term profit, brand personality becomes something you can cut. The parts that take effort get trimmed down. The parts that create difference get standardized. Experience gets replaced by systems, and trust gets replaced by retention programs that charge recurring fees. That's how you strip a brand away from itself. Keep the shell, replace the guts with cost optimization, and hope customers still pay for the memory. The lesson here is cold, but fair. In the healthy, fast casual world, you can't live on reputation if you no longer have three basics: quality, value, and identity. Customers might forgive once, might let it slide a few times, but they won't stay forever just because of a name. Especially in an era when a $15 to $20 lunch is no small thing, every disappointment is another lesson in how to leave. So here's the final question for you. Does Panera still have a chance to come back? Or did you stop eating there a long time ago? What do you think they need to change to earn trust again? Or has it all gone too far? Leave it in the comments below. And I'll read and reply to every one of your comments. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you'll get notified as soon as my next video drops. See you next time.